Hello, I'm Marcus Railton, and this is the ScotsCare podcast. ScotsCare is the only charity dedicated to helping disadvantaged Scots in London through a range of support, including mental health therapy, financial grants, advocacy, sheltered housing for older Scots, job coaching, social events, befriending, and support for children and families. The charity's been running for 400 years to help break the cycle of poverty experienced by some Scots in London. In this series of the ScotsCare podcast, I'll be chatting to celebrities and supporters of the charity that have forged a life often away from Scotland and about the ups and downs that can bring. Joining me today is professional boxer Hannah Rankin. Hannah became Scotland's first ever female world champion in 2019 when she won the IBO super-welterweight title. She then added the WBA super-welterweight title to that in November 2021. And as if that's not enough incredible talent for one person, Hannah is also a professional bassoonist, having learned music on her mother's knee since she was a young child. A boxer's life is a busy one, and it's taken a fair while to pin her down for a chat. But today, we finally got there.
ScotsCare.
Hi, Hannah.
Hello.
Thanks for joining the ScotsCare podcast.
Oh, no, thank you very much for having me. It's a pleasure to join you.
Oh, I know you're so busy. And you know what? We've had some great guests. We've had a guy from Star Wars, and we've had Christopher Brookmyre, best-selling crime author, a clinical psychologist about the secret of happiness. And wow. I tell my friends about these. Oh, this is who I'm chatting with today. And they all go, oh, aye, fair enough, aye. And you're the first person, when I said, I'm chatting to Hannah Rankin, they've said, oh, excellent. Can you ask her this?
Well, that's cool to know that.
So I've noted a couple of questions down, and I thought, I could try and cleverly work them into the interview as if they were mine. But once I come to them, I'll just say, this is from Rory, this is from Neil. And that way they get their answers. Yes.
No problem.
So where did you grow up?
I grew up in Loch Lomond. My family have a farm at the top of Glen Luss. So I went to primary school in Luss, the tiny little village there. And that's where I've lived my whole life until I moved down to London to study.
It's beautiful there. We used to go on school trips there when I was a kid.
I know. It's like I always say to people, when it's sunny at home, I wouldn't be anywhere else in the world because it's absolutely stunning. But it's only about 5 days of the year. So
well, this is it, because I always think, because I'm based in London, and I always say to my wife, I do get homesick. I still get homesick after 20 odd years in London. Yeah. And she says, yeah, but the weather, going home to the weather, and that's especially around Loch Lomond when it's bonny, it's lovely, but the rain and
when it's wet, it's wet.
Yeah. Do you remember Take the High Road? Do you remember the Scottish soap?
Yeah, I used to film it in Luss, and it's very strange because obviously we used to have a lot of American tourists come to Luss, and the poor people that lived there, I think they thought the houses were part of the set. I don't think they actually thought it was people's genuine houses that they lived in. So there's often people peering into their houses, looking around, thinking it was just part of a film set, but actually, it's real life for them.
That's brilliant, isn't it? You moved to London to study music. How long ago was that?
So I moved down here in 2012, 2013.
So a good while ago then.
Yeah, I've been there for quite a while. Been here quite a while now. It feels like my second home, really. I moved down to do my master's at the Royal Academy of Music.
And what came first? Was it the music or the boxing?
Oh, music. Yeah, I've been involved in music right from day one, really. My granddad was a music teacher when he was at school, and my mum always encouraged music in the house. She played the piano and the French horn and the cello. So myself and my sisters, we were all encouraged from a very young age, actually. And one of my earliest memories is actually sitting on my mum's knee at the piano, singing songs with her and listening.
You play the bassoon. Do
Yes.
you go straight in as a bassoon player, or do you graduate to bassoon?
No, actually, so first of all, obviously started on piano, but I was never very great at the piano. It was one of those things where I found it quite frustrating with the two hands moving around and everything. My sisters were much better at it than me, but then I moved on to the flute because my granddad suggested that we wanted to maybe do some orchestral playing, so I moved on to the flute. My sisters went on to string instruments, and then when I was in my it must have been my 4th year at secondary school, and a lovely old lady donated a bassoon to our school because she was horrified there wasn't one in the orchestra. So she donated one, and I thought, I want to play that. It's different, and I'm fed up of being one of like 400 flute players. So I picked up the bassoon and instantly knew that was the instrument for me. I just fell in love with it.
That is a great sound, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now, maybe it's my naivety, but when I first started researching you, because I knew you as a boxer, and then it came out that you played bassoon at a very high level, and maybe it's wrong of me to think, what an odd mix. Are people surprised that you are a boxer? And like, if somebody said to me, oh, do you know she also plays the drums? I'd have come around and went, oh, okay, she plays the drums, but the bassoon seems such, I don't know, they seem such juxtaposed things, don't they?
I suppose so, if you look at it from that angle, but then for me it makes a lot of sense. I explain this to people quite often because I do get that, are you mad? Those two things do not go together at all. Yeah. But being a bassoonist and being an orchestral musician, you have to enjoy performing. Often I'm on stage with an orchestra or a quintet or something like that, and I enjoy performing. You know, I'm under the lights, I'm there to create a memorable event for people coming to listen. You know, basically play with their emotions, hope they enjoy the highs and the lows of the music. And it's exactly the same thing in boxing. You know, you're getting to the boxing ring to entertain people, you're in there to perform, and it's just a bit different in the fact that the lights go down and it's just you and one other person, and you're gonna have a fight, but it's still an entertainment aspect of it. And both things require such dedication and discipline when it comes to the practice side of things. So for me, they actually work very well together. And if you look back in history, in martial arts particularly, there's a strong connection to music all the way through that. So actually they do make quite a lot of sense, but I think people think with the bassoon it's quite a serious classical instrument, so yeah. Couldn't possibly cross over into some sort of violent sport. But yeah, it's more like beautiful violence, I suppose. That's kind of how I see it.
I like that, beautiful violence. It's a nice phrase, isn't it? Your mum passed away a few years ago, and is this true that one of the reasons you took up boxing was to deal with what your mum was going through at the time as a kind of outlet for you?
Well, actually, I moved down to London to do my master's, and that first term, everything was going really well. I'd actually found a gym specifically to do combat sports in, because I'd actually got back into being fit again and doing that up in Glasgow at the end of my undergraduate. And I actually went back into Thai boxing, but then I met my coach and he introduced me to boxing, and I was doing that all the way through my first term. It's when I got back home at Christmas that year that I found out my mum, she'd just been diagnosed with cancer. And so it happened to have just started prior to that, but during those 6 months when she started to decline, unfortunately she passed away at the end of that. Boxing became a huge sort of hugely important part of my life, because it was a whole different world that wasn't associated to my mum, because obviously doing my music, I was very close to my mum. She was my number one supporter. She came to all of my concerts and things. So it was kind of like a break from that connection to her. Obviously music's very emotional as well. So it was kind of nice to be able to go to the gym, and it was probably the only place where I could become so tired that for a split second, I probably couldn't think about my mum being ill.
Yeah, I get that. I understand the separation there. It's probably something that was necessary.
Yeah, and I had a sort of a different family of people at the gym. And I think most people who do boxing will tell you that it is like a family when you join a boxing gym. People are very friendly. Everyone works together. And yeah, it was just a different bunch of people to be around. And it's probably the reason that I put so much into my boxing career now, because at the time, like probably at the lowest point of my life, the most difficult time, boxing was there for me and it supported me. And, you know, I think I owe it a lot, because it helped with the frustration and the anger and the upset. So, yeah, I think that's probably why I put so much into it now.
Your dad's a big supporter, because yeah. I saw a photograph of you when you won the IBO super-welterweight title, and your dad was in the ring, and the look on his face is just brilliant. It was such pride. But I kind of wonder, having a daughter myself, does your dad ever worry about you, or does your dad think, oh my Lord, there's somebody else trying to punch my daughter's head in here?
I think so, especially as he's got a little bit older and I've gone further into my career, obviously got further up into much harder fights and things. You know, it's definitely stressful for him. I'm one of his 3 little girls, you know, so at the end of the day, of course, he's going to be stressed. And I think he's got to the stage now where he just kind of takes his glasses down, so you can't fully see everything, what's going on in the ring. But he trusts my team, and that's the most important thing. I've got a great team around me, and like my coach Noel is always in contact with my dad. My dad always drops him a message in fight week just to check how I am. I think he thinks I don't know about this, but but yeah, no, I think he gets sort of reassurance and comfort from the fact there's a great connection to the team around me, and they're always keeping him in the loop about how things are going. So
yeah, any athlete that I've spoken to for the podcast recordings, I've spoken about the coach. I had a chat with Martin Perry, the Paralympian table tennis guy, and he was talking about Terry, his coach, and he said, without your coach, you're just nothing. I mean, is that the same is that why, you actually have it? When I email you, I'm emailing Team Rankin. So is your coach fundamental to you?
Absolutely fundamental. That I wouldn't be here where I am now without my coach, because when I decided I wanted to take up boxing as a career and go into it and see how far I could go, it was my coach that was the person right by my side, and he's been by my side from the very beginning, white collar fight that I did for charity right through to me being a double world champion now. So they are absolutely instrumental in where you get to, and especially in boxing, your coach knows you inside out. And fundamentally, at the end of the day, should you be in a hard fight and you get taking some injuries, they're the person that could ultimately save your life, because they'll see any sort of changes or things that they're not used to seeing, having seen you every single day in the gym. And also they're there for the highs, they're there for the lows, and it's like an unbreakable team. And I always have everything under Team Rankin, because at the end of the day, I wouldn't get to fight night without my team around me. They're the people that get me to the fitness levels I need to be at, get me to weight, help me with my mental training, and put me through my paces and get my skill levels to where they need to be. So at the end of the day, I'm the tip of the spear. They're everything prior to that.
ScotsCare, helping to break the cycle of deprivation for Scots in London.
Here's my first question from my friend Rory.
Yeah,
he's been doing white collar boxing, and he lost a load of weight over the last couple of years, and he looks fantastic now. He's really trim.
Congratulations, Rory.
Yeah, he's done well. And so I'm just going to read it out to you. Rory says, what gives you the extra edge for a win? Is it solely skill or the drive to want to win more at all costs within reason? Is there no room for general niceness? Do you need to just go in and be brutal within the rules to secure the win?
Well, I think when it comes to it, you can be one of the most skilled boxers on the planet, but if you haven't got that drive to win or that belief in yourself that you're going to win, then you probably won't. And if you think you're going to fail, you will, because that's just how it is. It's in boxing, if you think you're going to miss and you think you're going to get hit, you will get hit because you don't commit to your punches, you don't commit to what you're doing. So I think it's about commitment, it's about belief in yourself, and ultimately there's that sort of will to win. And you've seen some of the most amazing fights out there. At the end of the day, it comes down to who wants it more. And that is really how it works out. And this is why boxing is so exciting, because it's true one-on-one combat. It goes all the way back to sort of gladiatorial times, and there's something special about that. There's nothing else, there's nobody else in the ring going to help you, and it's truly how much inside you definitely want to win over the person in front of you. Regarding
that, you're talking about if you think you're going to fail, you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Do you remember when is it Patricia Bergholt knocked you down?
Yeah.
And that was the first time you had ever been knocked down.
Yeah.
How does that, because I read that and I thought, whoa, how does that rattle you? And how do you get up and win from that point? Because if you've never been knocked down, to get put on your bum for the very first time must be a massive thing.
It was, and at the time I remember thinking, I can't believe that just happened. I was just like, what? That way you just never believe it's going to happen, because you're aware of the fact it can happen. I think I should say that. But then you're just like, oh, when it does happen, it's a surprise, and it's how you react to that. So in my mind, I was just like, oh, I've got to get back up and fix this problem. That was the first thing that came through in my mind. I was like, right, I'm back up, I'm sorted it out, and I'll go back there and I'm going to win from this point onwards. And I lost a controversial decision in that fight, but it's that drive to win and to beat your opponent. And also, no matter what the situation is, to come back and get on top again. That's the important side of it.
That's it. It's the mental toughness. What is it Rocky says? It's not how hard you can hit, it's how hard you can get hit.
Yep. Keep going.
Yeah. Now, when we're talking about the IBO super-welterweight title that you won, huge achievement, history moment, first Scottish female world champion.
Yeah.
But you'd fought prior twice in the USA, but am I right in thinking those were not really at weights you felt comfortable?
No, when I first fought in America, I fought Alicia Napoleon over in New York. And I went up to super middleweight. Like, I wasn't really a super. I literally just went into the super middleweight weight class division by about a pound, but she was quite a small super middleweight as well, which is why I took the fight. Also, it's a great opportunity for exposure, a chance to fight in America, which is, for me, is amazing. I love fighting in America. There's so many great fights that have happened over there and history of the sport and things. So, for me to fight in America for the first time was amazing. But no, super middleweight is not my division. And then, of course, I fought Clarissa Shields, one of the pound for pound greats of our generation. I fought her at middleweight, and I'm not a middleweight either. My true weight is really super welter, and I can go down to welterweight. So, it was opportunities to go there and test myself against top level fighters. And I truly believe this, and I apply it to my music as well. If you want to be the best, you've got to work with the best.
So I presume if you go to the United States, there's a far bigger pool of fighters for you to fight?
Absolutely. There's a lot more girls around the weight class as well. Like here in the UK, when I first started out, there was only 2 of us in the UK, myself and Stacey Copeland, and that was it at super welterweight. I mean, how crazy is that? Just 2 of us.
Yeah.
So that's massively changed now. Thankfully, women's boxing is hugely on the rise, and we see a lot more fighters coming through, girls coming from the Olympic teams. It's been a huge kind of shift in popularity for the sport and support as well. So now we're actually getting a decent amount of fighters coming through. We're nowhere near what the guys are, but we're starting to get there.
Can you sit comfortably at super welterweight, or how hard is it for you to make weight? Or do you ever just think, do you know what, I just want a pizza?
Do you know what? When you're in a 12-week training camp, there are definitely times you're thinking, I could definitely do a pizza. But no, I make the weight well. I'm very disciplined when it comes to making weight. As far as I'm concerned, and I've always said this, it's 50% of my job is to make the weight. You're contracted to make a particular weight on a particular day. And if you don't make that weight, sometimes the fight won't go ahead, or you will have to pay money to your opponent. So, you don't want to do 12 weeks of work for the fight to not happen because you couldn't make the weight on the scales.
And it must have been great to when you made history, when you became the first Scottish female world champion, to do it in front of a home crowd. But is there an added pressure? Is it almost easier to go away and be the outsider?
To be honest, that was probably one of my most stressful nights of my life, because I'd fought in Norway by then, I'd fought in America, and I think fighting in front of my home crowd was something that added a little bit of pressure, because I knew a lot of people in the audience. There's a lot of my family, my friends. I could see everybody. And actually on the night, there was a very special moment, which kind of threw me a little bit before I went out to the ring. All of the young fighters, the young kids that go to the Quintet boxing gym in Glasgow, at that point, they almost did like a guard of honor for me for my walkout. They all stood there as I walked out. And it really caught me. I wasn't expecting them to do it, and I suddenly realized that all these little people are looking up to me to become world champion. And that was a moment, a real realization moment, and I remember it really, really clearly.
Can you take animosity into the ring, or does that go back to what you were talking about earlier, that you have to be more tactical? To
be on your best, you need to be cool, calm, and calculated. They always say you never do your best work fighting if you're angry or you're upset or you're over emotional, because if you're over emotional, then you'll rush to do things that you wouldn't normally do. That's when you make your mistakes. And if your opponent's more calm and reassured, that they'll take that opportunity to land their shots and do everything they need to do. So if you're not calm, then you're not going to be able to execute your game plan. You're not going to be able to, do what you need to do and deal with any sort of stresses in the ring.
Well, how do you control your nerves? Have you ever tried meditation or yoga?
I don't do yoga. I'd like to like yoga. Yeah. I'd like to enjoy it. I'd like to be able to go and do it, but I'm very, very fidgety and hyperactive, and I've got a little bit of ADHD. So I find that I get kind of fixated on trying to get the movements correct and do them the best I can, when actually it's something, you need to practice for years and years and years. So I get quite competitive with it. And I'm sure that's not what you're meant to be doing with yoga. So I do a lot of visualization techniques, a lot of mental preparation. I like I have a great team around me to do that with. And I think all top level athletes work with sports psychologists and do mental training. Visualization is such an important thing, and it's something I've actually brought over from my music side straight into the boxing world, because I visualized lots of concerts that I did millions of times, and it's how I prepare to do a solo concert, and same thing for, an orchestral concert as well. So it's important to be able to actually use this technique. But also when you said meditation there, I do use different types of meditation for breathing techniques. So, before I start a fight, I'll do 3 deep breaths to control my heart rate, calm my mind, get ready to go, all that sort of thing.
Do you still do long runs? Does that help mentally? Does that kind of clear the brain a bit?
I love to run. Running is my downtime. It's the time that I use to clear my head. It's the time I use to, when I'm in training camp, to visualize my fights, visualize opportunities, the things that are going to happen. Like they come in and they knock me down in the first round. How do I come back from that? Or I visualize I knock them out in the first round. Running is, for me, it's like my therapy. It's something that I really enjoy. But a lot of boxers don't enjoy running, ironically. A lot of them use it to make weight. So for me, I'm very blessed to find that I can actually use it to actually enjoy it.
If you're a Scot in London and up against it, in ScotsCare, you've got a friend.
Now, you spoke about a 12-week training camp, and this question is from my friend Neil, and he's a former England weightlifting champion.
Wow.
And he wanted to talk to you about, is there a maximum amount of time that you can hold that peak fitness?
Yes. So, 12 weeks, there was a couple of weeks was pre-camp work. So we're working on working on strength work and things like that, just prior to actually starting the training camp. But yeah, there's a limited time, and it's physically, you can always do more than you think you can. It's mentally, it's how it's peaking is really mental for me. I think it's like, you've got to get to that point where you're ready to fight, so my world title training camp's usually around about 10 to 12 weeks. And that's really down to your coach, how well they know you, how much you can step on the gas, push forward, or if you need to hold it back a little bit. There's all that side of it, which I'm always amazed at how well they manage to judge it, because peaking at the right point is so important. And it's that point when you get in the ring and you're like buzzing, you're ready to go, you're full of energy, and all the hard work is done and you're just ready to unleash it all.
Yeah, and I watched your last fight against Terry Harper, and that was great. You were buzzing there, but then I went, oh my Lord, when you had your eye cut quite badly.
Yeah.
What was it? What was it? At the edge of her glove or her head? What hit you?
Well, it was deemed a punch, but I think personally I thought it was an elbow, but it is what it is. The referee said it was a punch. So it was about 7 or 8 stitches after the fight. It's the first time I've ever been cut, ever, in 18 professional fights. Wow. And of course I'd have to do it in my world title defense, so if you're going to do something, do it well, my mom always used to say. So it was in the second round and it opened up, and it caused a lot of things I never had to deal with before. So I didn't really get to execute my game plan the way I wanted to. And even when I started to, catch up with her in the later rounds, because we always knew she'd be ahead by halfway. She's got great footwork, fantastic combination punching, so I knew she'd be ahead, but I was going to catch up with her in the later rounds. But it just, as I managed to get there and, score some damaging shots and things, I wasn't able to capitalize on it. So I just couldn't see very well. So, yeah, you live and you learn, and it's the first time I've ever been cut. So now I know going forward what that's going to be like. Do
you worry about getting hit on the head?
No.
Okay. No. Do you worry about getting hit on the chest?
No. Because I think in boxing, it's a fight at the end of the day. Yeah. And if you're going in there worrying about being hit in any way particular, you're more likely to get hit, like I said earlier, and you're not likely to be able to do the work that you need to do to win the fight. Yeah. So I don't worry about these things. And also equally, I'm, the British Boxing Board of Control is one of the safest boards in the world. So, we have to do tests every year. We get an MRI every year. We get medicals done every year. And obviously after this fight, for me, with the cut and things, I've got a suspension. I'm not allowed to fight, obviously, but things have got to heal. I've got to get checked by a doctor and things like that. So, these things are taken into consideration.
I watched an interview with the cyclist Geraint Thomas, And he was talking about sacrifice, and he was saying he's talking about, he mentioned Christmas dinners and birthday parties and nights out with friends that he has missed over the course of his cycling career. How much personal sacrifice has there been for you in that kind of way?
Definitely. I think all fighters will say, when it comes to sacrificing things, the things that we have to miss, the family events, weddings, birthdays, just social events that you miss as a fighter is very hard, because there's so many times in my family where I want to be there, but I can't be there because I'm in the middle of training camp. And, it's just also equally, personal things like, it's tragedies in the family and stuff like that. That sort of mental strain as well is actually very hard to deal with when you're trying to focus on a fight, because you need to be fully focused on what you're doing. So often if there's anything going on in the family and stuff, my family will message Noel, my coach, to let him know, and he'll decide whether or not I need to know about it until later on, because there's things like that which could really throw you at it, and ultimately that puts you at risk as a fighter, because then you're worrying about something else instead of what you should be doing.
You mentioned female boxing now hitting a much bigger stage, and it is, when I watched the Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano fight, there was 19,000 people,
incredible,
and it was a $1 million purse. Has this made a difference to your lifestyle? Have your wages skyrocketed? Are you now training in Monaco and driving a Bentley?
No. So basically, the Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano fight was incredible, a huge step forward for women's boxing, and also for boxing as a whole, it was a fantastic fight. Everybody was raving at how great it was. They sold out Madison Square Garden. It was incredible, and I was really lucky that my headline fight at the Hydro was 2 weeks later, because women's boxing was just booming and everyone was talking about it. So it really gave support to my fight as well. Money wise, we're nowhere near what the guys are earning. That's just facts at the moment, and the money is rising. And I'm now at a stage in my career as a former world champion, a 3 times world champion to be, there's opportunities there for me to get more sort of financial security from sponsorship, because people actually want to sponsor women's boxing these days. When I first started out, my coach would phone the traditional sort of building or scaffolding companies and say, I've got this great boxer, and they're like, oh, we don't like women's boxing. So now that's really changed. So you can get a lot more support from other things, but the purses are nowhere near what the guys are getting. It's just things will have to catch up a little bit. And I think that will change when we get maybe 12-2s, or if we get 3-minute rounds. Yeah. I think that's the last sort of stumbling block. But, we're getting there. And every time I get in the ring and do stuff, I'm always pushing for fairer prices for us.
Can you pinpoint one thing that drives you? Would it be the achievement, the titles, the fame, the cash? Is there anything that you could say one thing, or is it a mixture of all of them?
I think it's a mixture of a few things. One, I'm incredibly competitive with myself. I've always been like that. Whatever I'm going to do, if I want to do something, I'll go 100% at it. That's just how I work. Secondly, I think the loss of my mum gave me a sort of inspiration to do as much as I can do whilst I'm here, because tomorrow is never promised. And, being able to go out there and achieve this as a fighter in my later year, later than most people will be able to do it, is incredible. And probably lastly is I want to be sort of like a role model to people who maybe think they want to change their career at a later date. I didn't start boxing until I was halfway through my 20s. So, that was a very late start for me, but it was a passion of mine. And I thought, you know what, I love this. I want to do this. So that's where I've gone into it. And for those younger girls coming through, especially young Scottish girls, because, there's not very many of us boxing in Scotland. I want to inspire next generation to see that how Hannah Rankin, she became our first female world champion. She headlined at the Hydro. That's a possibility for me. That's something that I can follow, a path that I can do. So, and boxing is a career path that is now open to me as a young girl. So yeah, I think that's pretty much what drives me, because I know every time I get in boxing ring, there's lots of little people and older looking at me to see what I'm going to do. Especially as obviously having lost my last fight, I know a lot of people are waiting to see how I react to this and how I come back and what I'm going to do next. And I'm a very resilient person. I know this about myself. It's probably one of my good attributes. So for me, I can't wait to get back in the ring next year and get back on the horse and get back to where I know I belong as a world champion, but hopefully that inspires younger people to follow their dreams and, push themselves to try new things.
And are you rooted in the here and now, or do you ever take time out and think life after boxing?
Well, obviously when I'm fighting, I have to be in the moment, but I'm very lucky actually to experience the opportunity of actually doing commentary much earlier in my career than I actually ever thought I would. I thought it's not something that would come to me until after I retired. Yeah. But I've been very blessed to have the opportunities to work with Sky Sports, with BBC, all of these places. So for me, I'd like to go into a commentary career after I retire from boxing. That's something I'd like to do. I do quite a lot of public speaking at the moment, working with health and wellness groups, an ambassador for a boxing charity. So these are sort of areas that I probably will aim to be involved in when I retire.
I think the final question I would ask you might be a difficult one for you, Hannah, but if you could meet your 17-year-old Hannah, is there anything you would say to her now looking back? Oh, you're still a young woman. What age are you now?
32 now.
Oh, you're only 32. If you could meet 17-year-old Hannah, is there any advice you'd give her? Anything you would have changed in that path?
To be honest, probably not, because everything I've done has got me to where I am now. And the way that I always approached things was, give it a go, see where you end up. Because I'm that kind of person. I always take an opportunity that's given to me and see what happens, because it takes you into some amazing places. But 17-year-old me, I'd probably say there's great things to come. Brilliant. And, just keep doing what you're doing and be yourself.
Hannah, thanks for chatting to me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Speak to you later. Tatty bye.
Cheers, bye.
ScotsCare, working to make London life better for Scots and their children.